All right, so as we indicated, of course, on the sidelines of the repatriation of those 14 South African soldiers who were killed, their remains being repatriated, of course, back to South Africa. That repatriation is currently underway. We'll try to go to our reporter, Leon, who will give us the latest from Uganda in just about a moment regarding where that process is. But of course, on the sidelines of that, President Cyril Ramaphosa this morning attending that summit in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, that of course being the joint Southern African Development Community, the SADC and East African Community Heads of State and Government Summit, which is taking place regarding the security situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The heads of state and the East African community agreed to this meeting quite urgently. And while this meeting is taking place, the repatriation of those bodies of those South African soldiers is still underway at the moment. This as the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission has confirmed to SABC News that the bodies of the fallen soldiers killed in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo are headed to the Entebbe International Airport in Uganda for repatriation. This includes the bodies of the 14 South African National Defence Force soldiers. We understand there are 18 altogether, but 14 of them are those of the South African National Defence Force soldiers that were killed in that fighting with the M23 rebels. That was near Goma, you'd recall, in late January. Let's get the latest now from SABC News correspondent Leon Senyange, who's got the latest for us from Uganda. Leon, a very good morning to you. Thanks indeed for your time. Perhaps what are you hearing about the latest in terms of this repatriation on the ground?
Well, with regard to the repatriation, what the latest is now is that the convoy of the UN motorcade, of course, carrying the remains of the fallen soldiers, crossed through the Chanika border point. That's a border point shared between Uganda and Rwanda yesterday, Friday. Now, between Chanika and the Entebbe UN logistics base is about a 10 hours journey. So definitely what we have now been able to gather is that that convoy is expected to arrive in Entebbe this afternoon. That has also been further confirmed by a statement from the South African National Defence Force. Of course, the Department of Defence therein issuing a statement confirming that the arrival is expected this afternoon, and then the bodies will be prepared for repatriation to South Africa. That, of course, includes the 4 other fallen soldiers. 14 are South African, 4 others, 2 each from Malawi, and also 2 from Tanzania will also be repatriated. That precisely is the latest so far.
Yeah, and do you have word of what you just spoke about, the distance between the border that separates Uganda and basically the 10-hour drive from the border to the logistics hub? What is expected to happen once they arrive at the logistics hub? We understand that this is a very delicate process. And, you know, there are a number of processes that need to be followed before you get the remains of those South African soldiers boarded onto that aircraft and brought back to South Africa. Do you have any word of what will happen once they arrive there?
Well, it's been a bit of a tight-lipped situation here, and the information that is being gathered, of course, is kept slightly within secrecy, and it's very understandable, the situation and why that is entirely being done. But yes, it's expected that there should be processes for the repatriation of soldiers, those specifically peacekeepers, and within the policies of the UN and of course the logistical bases, there must be protocols under which this kind of repatriation is done. And definitely it's expected that all this will be done or possibly has been arranged, and the very likely outcome is that the bodies may be moved later today.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, given that you have these bodies that will be taken, of course, to Entebbe, what is the sentiment that you might also be getting, you know, from the ground, even from people in your country, about, you know, the escalating situation, the casualties, and what, of course, now is a process that will see these South African soldiers and, of course, the 2 from Tanzania and the other 2 from Malawi, all being repatriated back to their countries of origin from there?
Well, the crisis in Goma and, of course, the conflict therein is one that Ugandans have seen for a very long time. Uganda itself has positioned and placed itself across some of the conflict areas within the region in Somalia and also the eastern DRC, the northern part of North Kivu now, that is Ituri, where the Ugandan forces are based. It is quite understandable the kind of sentiment that will follow the what is going on. But overall, it is a general concern, not just for, again, the South Africans or Tanzanians or Malawians, but a general concern within the region that the conflict in eastern DRC is one that affects and stifles quite a lot of things within the region itself. There's been a persistent call to end the conflicts in eastern DRC. Those are very much awaited but far-fetched to arrive. And definitely with the meeting today again happening in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, there's a call from the heads of state, both of the Southern African Development Community and the East African Community, to try and find a long-lasting solution to this crisis. The conflict therein, of course, is one that has nipped much of the peace situation in Uganda. DRC, Rwanda fighting, DRC accusing Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebels. That has gone on for far too long, and many feel that there must definitely be an end to it.
Yeah, and with your president also expected to be attending that meeting, I guess the sentiments around how important this would be for stability in that particular region, for these presidents to come out with a lasting solution. It should not just be a talk shop as the bodies pile up.
It's definitely going to be a very dicey issue and a very hot item on the table, discussion in that meeting in Dar es Salaam. Of course, we have a situation where the DRC has accused Rwanda, like I said earlier, and Rwanda has consistently denied the allegations of supporting the M23 or even still having its forces within the territory of DRC. That is a big demand that the DRC could put on the table, that the Rwandan forces should vacate the territory of the DRC. But even still, it's not just an M23 problem. Uganda is dealing with the Islamist ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces on one hand. Then there's also the M23 on the other, and 100 others rebel groups that exist within the border lining of the eastern DRC. So for the East African community, this is definitely a very big problem. It has stifled trade, it has stifled peace and security in the region, and it has existed for a far long time. So at this point, regardless of all the peace discussions, all the talks that have existed between DRC and Rwanda, even still, those that have been mooted by President Yoweri Museveni, Angola's Lourenco, there's not been a solution. I think for now, there's going to be a very hard call, a very determined call to arrive at tough decisions, which will and possibly should be able to see that there is a sense of peace and arrival at peace within the eastern DRC.
Leon Sanyange, thank you very much indeed. Live to us from, of course, Uganda on the latest relating to the repatriation of the South African soldiers. Of course, 14 of those are South Africans, and there are 2 from Tanzania and 2 others from Malawi. So 18 bodies expected to arrive at Entebbe. You do say that's expected this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed. We're hoping to get the latest from you a little bit later on. So hearing from our correspondent there in Uganda is that the bodies of the South African soldiers and 4 others, 2 other slain soldiers from Tanzania as well as Malawi. We do apologize for that. We're going to bring the lights on in just a moment.